Have you spent hours staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night, begging for sleep to come? Or perhaps tried every remedy available, only to feel groggy and confused the next day? If you're watching this video right now, you probably know this struggle all too well. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share a discovery that seems too simple to be true, but transformed Helen's life after 15 years of torturous sleepless nights. We're not talking about another sleeping pill, but rather a breakfast adjustment that completely recalibrated her biological clock. Sleepless nights are more than just inconvenient, aren't they? It's that anguish that begins when everyone in the house is already asleep, and you remain awake, watching the hours pass. Thoughts start racing, worries amplify, and anxiety about being tired the next day only makes everything worse. By morning, you drag yourself around the house with a mental fog that turns simple tasks into challenges. Memory fails, irritability increases, and even meeting with loved ones becomes enormous efforts. For seniors, this reality is even crueler. The body ages, but the torment of sleepless nights only intensifies. Helen told me she began to fear she was developing dementia, when in reality, it was chronic sleep deprivation affecting her cognitive functions. What many sleep specialists do not reveal is that insomnia in older adults is rarely just a natural aging problem. A recent study from Harvard University showed that 67% of sleep problems in people over 65 are directly linked to nutritional and hormonal imbalances that can be corrected. Dr. Robert Thompson, a neurologist specializing in sleep medicine, states, "Most doctors prescribe hypnotics and antidepressants to elderly people with insomnia, completely ignoring the fundamental role that certain nutrients play in regulating the circadian cycle." What Helen was facing wasn't simply an inevitable consequence of age, but a biochemical imbalance that her body had been signaling for years through persistent insomnia. Helen had always been an active and vibrant person. At 65, after retiring as an elementary school teacher, she had plans to travel, learn new languages, and spend more time with her grandchildren. However, what should have been the golden phase of her life quickly turned into a nightmare. It all started with small difficulties falling asleep, she recalls. "I thought it was just the stress of adapting to retirement." Poorly slept nights soon became the norm. She would fall asleep around 3 a.m., only to wake again at 5, exhausted, irritated, and unprepared for the day. Gradually, Helen began canceling social commitments. The painting classes she so looked forward to were abandoned. Visits to her grandchildren became rare, as she feared falling asleep while watching them. The worst wasn't the physical tiredness, she confesses with teary eyes. "It was feeling like my mind was betraying me. I would forget recent conversations, lose objects around the house, and sometimes become confused about what day of the week it was." For years, Helen pilgrimaged through doctors' offices. She tried everything: sleeping pills that left her lethargic the next day, relaxation techniques that worked temporarily, and even expensive alternative therapies that promised miraculous results. Her medicine cabinet was filled with partial solutions and unfulfilled promises. Until, during a visit to her new geriatrician, Dr. Paul Miller, something different happened. Instead of immediately prescribing another medication, he asked about her diet, specifically, what she ate first thing in the morning. I'll share the 3 miraculous breakfast components that transformed Helen's nights and can transform yours too. This discovery happened almost by accident, when Dr. Miller noticed a pattern among his elderly patients who had improved their sleep quality. All of them, without knowing, had modified their breakfast in a similar way, including specific nutrients that modern science now proves are fundamental for sleep regulation. The first crucial component is tryptophan, an amino acid precursor to serotonin and melatonin, the neurotransmitters of well-being and sleep. What few know is that what you eat at breakfast directly affects the production of these hormones at night. Helen discovered that 78% of elderly people with chronic insomnia have insufficient levels of this amino acid, not because they don't consume it, but because the timing of consumption was completely wrong. When she began including a small portion of cottage cheese or Greek yogurt, rich in tryptophan, along with a banana, which helps absorption, right after waking up, something remarkable began to happen. In the first week, I didn't notice much difference, Helen reports. But on the 8th day, I realized I had fallen asleep without noticing while reading a book around 10 p.m. This was an extraordinary event for someone who habitually remained awake until the early hours of the morning. Tryptophan works like a seed planted in the morning that blooms at night, but only when properly combined with carbohydrates that facilitate its entry into the brain. The combination of protein rich in tryptophan with banana wasn't coincidence, but a perfect synergy that her doctor had meticulously studied. The second miraculous component is vitamin D3, often called the sunshine hormone. Dr. Miller explained to Helen that this vitamin isn't just crucial for bones and immunity. It's fundamental for regulating the circadian rhythm. A recent study published in the Journal of Sleep Medicine showed that 81% of elderly people with chronic sleep disorders had severe vitamin D3 deficiency. Most surprising, morning sun exposure wasn't enough to correct this deficiency in people over 70. When Helen began including 2 tablespoons of sunflower seeds, rich in natural vitamin D, in her morning yogurt, along with a short 10-minute walk outdoors before 9 a.m., her body began to synchronize again with the natural day-night cycle. After 2 weeks, I began to naturally feel sleepy around 9 p.m., something that hadn't happened in decades, she recounts emotionally. It was as if my body finally understood when it was time to be alert and when it was time to rest. The most fascinating thing about vitamin D3 is that consuming it in the morning, followed by at least a few minutes of natural light, creates a time marker for the brain, signaling the beginning of the daily cycle. Without this clear signal, the elderly brain frequently drifts, without defined temporal anchors, resulting in irregular periods of drowsiness and alertness that make nighttime sleep almost impossible. The third element, which surprised even Helen's doctor, is magnesium in the right form and at the right time. Magnesium is known for its relaxing effect, but what many ignore is that there are different types of this mineral, and only some forms are effectively absorbed by the brain to aid in sleep. Most magnesium supplements on the market are practically useless for sleep problems, as they can't efficiently cross the blood-brain barrier. Helen began adding a teaspoon of unsweetened pure cocoa, one of the most bioavailable sources of magnesium, to her breakfast. This simple adjustment, combined with half an apple to balance the bitter taste, completed the miraculous triad. This particular type of magnesium acts as a natural calming agent for neurons, reducing brain excitability and preparing the ground for peaceful sleep many hours later. The magic was in the timing. Consumed in the morning, magnesium has enough time to be processed by the body and be available in the nervous system exactly when needed, in the nighttime period. After 30 days following this protocol, Helen had completely redefined her sleep pattern. It wasn't an instant change, but gradual and sustainable, very different from the abrupt and temporary effects of the medications she had tried previously. How will you know this transformation is beginning in your body? Watch for these signs. First, you'll notice that the time it takes to fall asleep begins to decrease. Instead of tossing and turning in bed for an hour or more, you may notice that 20-30 minutes are enough to fall asleep. Second, nighttime awakenings become less frequent and briefer. Many report that even when waking up to go to the bathroom, they can return to sleep much more easily. Third, this is particularly important. You'll begin to feel a natural drowsiness at the same time every night, like an internal bell signaling that it's time to sleep. And fourth, perhaps most surprisingly, you'll notice a significant improvement in mental clarity during the day, as if a fog you didn't even know existed had dissipated. For Helen, the most significant moment came 3 months after starting her new morning ritual. Her daughter had organized a family gathering that included her 4 grandchildren. In the past, Helen dreaded these meetings, worried that her tiredness and mental confusion would prevent her from fully enjoying precious moments with family. This time, however, something magical happened. We spent the entire day together, from breakfast to a late dinner. For the first time in years, I was completely present, mentally and emotionally. I could participate in the games, maintain complex conversations, and even help my oldest grandson with a math problem. She reports with bright eyes. Her daughter noticed the difference immediately. "Mom, you look 10 years younger. What happened?" she asked, astonished. When Helen explained her discovery, her daughter began to cry. "I was so worried we were losing you to some kind of dementia," she confessed. The most impressive thing wasn't just that Helen spent the entire day active without napping, something unthinkable a few months before, but that at night she slept deeply for 8 straight hours, waking naturally at 6 a.m., renewed and eager for another day with family. "I realized I had recovered not just my nights, but my days too," she reflects emotionally. "And it all started with 3 simple changes to breakfast. Now I want you to do something important. Tomorrow morning, before anything else, try Helen's miracle breakfast. It's not complicated nor requires exotic ingredients. Start with a portion of protein rich in tryptophan. It can be Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or even eggs, which also contain tryptophan. Add a natural source of vitamin D like sunflower seeds, sardines, or egg yolk. Finish with a bioavailable source of magnesium. Pure unsweetened cocoa, almonds, or spinach added to an omelet. And don't forget to complement with a banana or half an apple to improve absorption and taste. Remember that this isn't an instant solution like a sleeping pill. Your body needs time to recalibrate years of imbalance. Commit to following this protocol for at least 21 consecutive days without skipping a single breakfast. Keep a small sleep diary, noting what time you fell asleep, how many times you woke during the night, and how you felt upon waking. You'll likely notice small improvements in the first week, but the true transformation occurs when you give your brain time to establish new neurological patterns. If you're taking medications, especially for high blood pressure, heart problems, or antidepressants, talk to your doctor before making significant changes to your diet. For most people, these foods are completely safe, but it's always important to personalize any approach to your specific health needs. Your journey to peaceful nights and invigorating days begins not with a pill taken before bed, but with the choices you make as soon as the sun rises. As Helen discovered at 80, it's never too late to recover the quality of your sleep and, with it, the quality of your life. If you know someone who suffers from insomnia or poor sleep quality, especially an elderly person, share this video right now. You may be offering not just information, but the true gift of restorative rest. Write "rest" in the comments to declare your intention to transform your nights and share which day you're starting this journey. I'll be here tracking your progress and answering your questions. Remember Helen's words. At 80, I rediscovered the pleasure of a good night's sleep, and with it, rediscovered the joy of living fully awake. This can be your story too, beginning with your next breakfast.